Welcome to episode 17 of the This is Reportage podcast. My name is Alan Law, I'm the founder of This is Reportage, and I'm a wedding photographer too. Today I'm really excited to have the fab Yves Schepers with us. Based in Belgium, Yves recently won 7 Reportage Awards in a single round, which is an incredible achievement, and he shares so much with us today, including the importance and power of networking, a time in his life when he suffered from depression, the importance of empathy and being client-focused, Belgian fries, what drives him to enter awards and associations in general, and so much more. Hey Yves, how you doing?
Hey Alan, I'm fine, thank you. Sitting in the sun right now, so couldn't be
Is
better.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it nice weather where you are? You're in Belgium, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's not always gray and cold and rainy here. It's sometimes the sun is out, so I'm happy.
That is a good day. It's quite nice here as well, actually, which is very good. You know, I've never been to Belgium. I need to go.
You definitely need to go. It's the epicenter of Belgian fries, chocolate, beers, and good photographers, I guess. No?
Yes. I was going to ask you about that actually, because there does seem to be so many great Belgian wedding photographers. Do they teach you wedding photography from the age of 6 or something?
No, we just teach each other. I think that's one of the reasons actually, and it's not a joke. I think like Belgium, you can divide it in like 2 parts. You have the Flemish part and you have the French speaking part. And I think obviously the Flemish and the French speaking part, they just stick together a bit more. And like if you then take Flanders, it's like really small. If I drive for let's say 1.5 hours, I can drive from east to west. So,
right.
and that means that the community of wedding photographers here is quite close knit. Everybody kind of knows everyone, and it's very easy to meet up and to drop by each other. And I think that that networking bit really improves and like strengthens our community and our craft actually.
Yeah, that's cool. That's something I was going to ask you about actually, because networking is quite a hot topic. We haven't really spoken about it on the podcast. So yeah, I guess so. Do you think that's a major reason why Belgian wedding photographers are doing so well, is that you have such a close network?
I think so, and actually it's also actually the reason I started off being a wedding photographer because
really?
I think before I shot my first wedding, I was introduced to a whole bunch of wedding photographers, and that the great atmosphere and the friendships that I developed through in that community just like pushed me towards being like a professional wedding photographer myself, because I was introduced by Dries Ranglet, a good friend of mine, and he introduced me to a bunch of people, and it was, like I said, so much fun. And I was shooting some photography on the side, but I wasn't doing anything serious with it. And then I saw this bunch of people having fun, doing creative stuff, and it just inspired me to try and pursue the same thing.
Oh, that's cool.
I knew like 30 photographers before I even shot my first wedding. So that's and then you have like in regards to what a network can give you, or you share knowledge, you share jobs. I think in 2014 it was my first real year as a wedding photographer. And I launched my website, one that I built myself with a crappy template I bought somewhere online. I think I launched it in December 2013, but I booked 26 weddings in 2014.
Wow.
And it's not because, I was a great wedding photographer. It was just because, everybody knew my schedule was empty and they had double bookings, or they had their schedule was full, so they were like transferring jobs to me.
Ah,
Uh,
that's cool.
yeah, and it's just like it's it's also why I always say to people that ask me about the wedding photography community, it's like I think it's a common thing to say that we're not, I don't see them as competition, but just as
Mm.
colleagues and friends. And I think that's the real strength of such a community. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's such a friendly scene as well, isn't it?
Mm.
Before I got into wedding photography, I thought everybody would be really guarded and holding on to their kind of trade secrets, but everyone seems to be so open. It's really lovely.
Yeah, indeed.
And it's one of the best things about going to workshops and conferences, I think, is the networking and meeting other photographers.
Yeah, that's why I started out with going to conferences, of the Fearless conferences, actually.
Mm,
And it just blew my mind. Um, Not only the speakers I saw on stage then, it was, I think the first time I went was in 2014 in Amsterdam, but it was also like, yeah, meeting all kinds of photographers that tackle wedding photography in their own way and have their own
mm.
style. And yeah, it's so awesome to know that, instead of working somewhere in an office in Brussels and you have your colleagues sitting 10 meters from you, you have colleagues all over the world.
That's
And
so cool.
yeah, and you can visit them. And I shot a wedding in San Francisco, I think in 2000 2018, of
Right.
Sarah. And that's a photographer. Also, she's also a wedding photographer.
Oh, cool.
And I met her at a conference in Romania, a Fearless conference. And then, we kept in touch, and she asked me to be a wedding photographer. And when I was there, I stayed at her place, and I hooked up with some other photographers I knew along the road. And yeah, it's fantastic.
That is cool. Yeah, it's a very cool industry that way. And talking of fellow wedding photographers, you recently, well, it was about a year ago or so now, wasn't it? You recently shot fellow TIR member Linda Bauricius's wedding,
Yeah.
which she spoke about on her podcast episode as well. How was that for you? Did you feel extra pressure shooting for another wedding photographer? Was she a good client?
Yeah, she was the best client I ever had. No, really, it was. I also shot Philip Swigger's wedding.
Oh, did you? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I shot Annelies Gaillard. She's also a wedding photographer from Belgium. I shot her wedding. I did a couple, and it's, on the one hand, it like it pushes me on an edge, like
Mm,
adrenaline flows. And actually, I think that's the state of mind that I perform the best, in that kind of state of mind, when I'm under pressure. But on the
yeah.
other hand, you know, they're just people. They know how the wedding photography, how to be a wedding photographer, and they know, they just let you be you. And just, they
Yeah.
always say, like, just do you. And they don't have extra, I don't know, rules. They don't want you to do this and that. They just trust you because, apart from being friends, they know what you can do. And I think the level of trust they give you is often even higher than the level of trust that clients that are not in the business give you. And so, it's, on the one hand, it's pressure, but on the other hand, they also give you more freedom. And you can experiment more, and be more creative. That you don't really have to do the classics. And Linda's wedding in particular, I shot it with Dries, as a second photographer. And also, that's one of the things, wedding photographers, they know how important it is to have a good second with you. So yeah, right from the start, gives you more freedom. But it was a great wedding. Great atmosphere. The people were just relaxed. And a lot of stuff happened on the day. And actually, I was listening to her podcast when I was reviewing my work. um, to enter the TRR Awards for the first time, actually.
Oh yeah.
And I was going through her wedding while I was listening to her on a podcast. So it was like Inception. It was, but it was amazing. And I think her wedding was one of the stories I entered. So
Oh, cool.
let's find out how good it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. No, cool. It's good to hear about that. And I guess she made sure you were fed as well.
Yes, definitely. There's nothing, but I also tell all my clients I'm low maintenance. I have water and I have snacks with me.
You
The
don't
only,
request a 5-course meal and to be sat at the top
and
table.
I'm okay with crew meals
Yeah.
as long as it's fast and I can just do my own thing. Then I'm good. I'm good. I'd rather be independent and know when you end up in an emergency situation, you have to run, or I mean, if you have to, something's happening, you can, you're independent, let's say.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
that's good.
yeah.
Low maintenance as well is always good.
Yeah.
Whilst on the subject of food, let's change tack to that slightly. What would be your last meal on death row?
Maybe I should answer this one with French fries because they're actually Belgian. There's a misconception about that.
Oh, really? Is it?
Just I want to make I want to make it clear to the TRR audience that it's Belgian fries. But apart from that, no, I would choose for a simple mashed potatoes with carrots, like mixed together. I don't know how you say it. Is it carrot mashed potatoes? I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know either the proper word for that. But
Yeah, you just mash the potatoes together with the carrots on one hand, and on the other hand, just sausage. Just regular sausage actually, and some mayonnaise.
Wow, that is low, mate. You are low maintenance, Eve.
Yeah, but and I kind of stopped that addiction, but I used to eat mayonnaise with everything I could.
Oh, really? Okay. Even a mayonnaise with Belgian fries, even?
I think it's 1 + 1 is 3. I don't I shouldn't even think about that question. It's like they were created for each other. So
So when you go to McDonald's, do you ask for Belgian fries then?
just fries,
Okay.
you don't have to really pronunciate the Belgian.
No, that's true.
Everybody knows fries is okay. Fries is Belgian.
That's funny. Cool. You touched upon it just a little bit earlier, kind of about how you started to get into weddings, but I just wondered if you could go a bit more into that because you used to be an engineer, didn't you? I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how did you go from that meeting with Dries, the other wedding photographers? How did you go literally from that to then start doing your own weddings?
Oh well, I think I bought my first DSLR in 2010-ish.
All right. Okay.
Something like that. But it was like a crop sensor, Canon 450D.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My first was the 500D, my very first camera. So very similar. Yeah.
You were a rich guy then. But no, yeah, and I bought that one, just because actually there was a slight feeling inside of me that I was creative, but I couldn't draw, I couldn't play music, I couldn't sing. And I was like, yeah, which kind of tool or medium can I use to try and have an outlet for that creativity? And my father always used to take pictures, but just an amateur level, nothing very serious. And so I bought that Canon 450D. And then I played around with it. I registered for like a year of evening classes in some courses.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't really learn a lot in those courses because everything they they teach you theoretically. You can just find in any other photography book. But it pushed me to go out there and shoot, and to exercise and to try and try and try and fail and fail and fail. And I think that was the biggest lesson I got out of it. That was in 2010, and then I didn't touch my camera for 2 years. But in the same time, I was living in a kind of community house. So I was living in like a house together with different people, just to cut costs. You're young. I was around 25, 26, and I didn't have a girlfriend, didn't, own a house or anything. It was a cheap way and a fun way to live together.
Yeah.
And then I looked for a different house because my housemate at that time were going to live together with their girlfriends and stuff. And then I ended up like by coincidence at Dries' place. And with coincidence, I mean like my girlfriend at the time and me, we were both looking for a different house, and we both applied, like kind of like applied. It's like very official, but we both contacted Dries and his roommates, and actually we came to a situation that they had to choose either me or her. And I think they didn't choose eventually, and we had to decide. But then we decided that I went on living with Dries and his friends. But suppose that we made the other decision.
Yeah.
Choose another house. I don't know where I would have ended up.
That is very interesting, actually, isn't it? It's like Sliding Doors, the film. I don't know if you've seen that, or just one bit of fate and your whole life on a different path.
Yeah, because I, for 200% sure, I wouldn't have been a wedding photographer if I wouldn't have made the decision that I would be the one that moved in with them.
I wonder if your girlfriend would have been a wedding photographer.
No, I don't know. Maybe who knows? Maybe Dries' persuasion was that big that swayed her into wedding photography as well. But
so you moved in with him?
I moved in with him then, and then, like I told you earlier, like I met a bunch of photographers through him, and it was so much fun. That on the one end, and then the other cliche, a rose. Is that a good?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, a rose that friends of mine getting married, and they know you have a camera that is somewhat better than a point and shoot, and they're like, you're a great photographer. Why don't you shoot our wedding? And I was like, excuse me. So I was living with Dries, and I was like, okay, why not just try it? And I tried it, and it was fun, but I did all the cliches.
Did you? Yeah.
My images in 45 degrees. I only shot on f2.8.
Right.
I put like a massive grungy filter on all of my pictures. Like how do you like the post-processing was like split color
Oh, nice.
Yeah, all those even like fisheye. I shot it like all the cliches in one, and all the little gimmicks in one wedding, but they liked it. And then I shot another friend's wedding, and then it kind of added up to me. There was like one turning point. I was sitting in a meeting in that company I was working with back then, and they were discussing. It was like a company that was into freezer storage. They were storing deep frozen vegetables and stuff.
Okay, sounds fun.
That was a time of my life. And they were discussing prices, like pallet prices. Instead of 2.5 euros per pallet, they would charge the client 2.35, and it was like a revolutionary idea. And I was like, I saw all my life like flashing before my eyes. And at that point, I was like, what am I doing here? And I was thinking about like photos and editing, and like, I felt that that was the thing I maybe had to do. So I quit my job and I just started out, without having any portfolio and no website, no name, no nothing. But I saved up some money over the 6-7 years that I was working as an engineer, and I had low costs, because I lived in that kind of co-housing project. So yeah, and I gave myself 1 year just to see how it goes, just see how it would go, and it turned out for the best, and yeah, I'm still
That's
happy.
that's great,
So,
man. That's cool, and obviously doing really, really well as well. But I think you said for the first couple of years shooting weddings, I think you said you used to be a bit embarrassed to let people know that's what you
yeah,
did. Is that right? When did
yeah.
that embarrassment go?
No, it was just like, since I shot that first wedding, every time people ask me about photography, my photography, I said like, yeah, but I'm doing this as a temporary thing, the wedding photography. I'm going to, I try to be commercial photographer, advertising photographer. Wedding photography in Belgium also had like a negative connotation, like
Yeah.
people, like a couple each on their side of the tree, like peeping out, those kind of shots.
Right.
Um, and so I was always kind of embarrassed, and I just like, I saw wedding photography actually just as a kind of cash cow. It's kind of an easy market to enter, because there's a lot of demand, a lot of couples, wanting to get married, and they need a photographer, and you have all kind of budgets, from 500 euros a wedding to, let's say, 5,000 or more. So it's kind of a big market, and so it was easy to enter, and I saw it as a temporary thing, but mainly because I was shooting weddings as I thought I should shoot them, like shooting the dress, shooting the shoes, the rings, all the normal stuff I saw on other photographers' websites, like
Mhm.
just like the photographers you find in each village, with the window shops and everything. So I wasn't, I think it was just because I didn't really find my own thing in the wedding photography,
Yeah.
and then as of it all changed in 2016 when I registered for the foundation workshop,
Oh, cool.
organized by Fearless, and it's I registered because I wanted to be a better photographer, and only after 3 days in the 5 days workshop, I realized it was about stories and telling stories. And I was like, what stories? What stories? I don't know what you're talking about. So it was a big eye opener. And it put me on the right path. But
That's
I've
cool. Who were your, do you have one or two mentors on that, do
I had
you?
two mentors. One was Sergio Lopez.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and he was like, you know, it was on the one hand it was Sergio, on the other hand it was Ben Chrisman.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah.
I see like those two pairing up. I see Ben Chrisman being, the mind and the ratio, and the head of the two, and Sergio more being the heart of the two.
Okay.
And but they work together so, so amazingly.
Cool.
And yeah, it really had a deep impact on how it put me on the right path. But actually the struggle only began because you kind of know and understand where you want to go, but then you don't have a clue how to get there.
Yeah.
And it's only since I think last year that I really came to peace with who I am as a person, as a photographer, and kind of have an idea of how I want my photography to be, what I wanted to be like. Yeah, so I think it was an interesting an interesting adventure until now, let's say.
Well, that's cool. Cool. We'll go back to your photography in a minute as well. Well, let's change tack again slightly. If you could choose one day in your life to live over and over again, like Groundhog Day, you have seen Groundhog Day, haven't you?
Mhm.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
good. Because so many people I've asked this, they've never seen it, which is just one of the best films ever, I think.
Yeah, and Bill Murray. It's
Yeah.
right. It's a great actor. I love it.
Yeah, he's brilliant. But if which day would you live over and over again if you could?
Uh, mm, the day I beat you in table tennis.
That's not happened.
It's no. You must be. You were drunk then, Alan. I don't. I was there, and I think other people saw it as well. Should check. No, true. No, it didn't happen yet. I'm,
It-
I'm, I'm practicing day in, day out, very seriously. Next year at 9 dots, I will beat you.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
No. Which day? Um, well, actually, the day, it's maybe a cliche, but the day our daughter was born.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of maybe parents will say that, but it's just it's not only that day because obviously that day you're in, or maybe the week that you're in the hospital, you're in a kind of bubble, and I love the fact that like everything, like your whole life around you just stops. You don't care about the outside world, and you're just like with your family, your new family in the
Yeah.
hospital, so you can totally focus on that. But actually, it's like a specific moment on that day, and actually, Charlotte was born, with a C-section, so it was a little bit of a different kind of birth, I think,
Right.
because you have children as well, right?
Yes, that's right. Two little ones. Yeah.
And they were born just like naturally.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
say.
Oh yes. Yeah, they were luckily. Yeah.
Okay, no, but like it's strange because you kind of have an appointment,
All right.
so it's not that you have to go to the hospital once the what's the name of the once the process starts. I don't know the name in.
Oh, I don't know either.
you know
I know we know what you mean though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but so we had to be there at 1 p.m. and then you're sitting in a waiting room and together with some other like parents, or parents to be actually, and then they come like the nurses come and she's like, the C-section of 1 p.m. please, and it was pretty like we were at a supermarket and you have a ticket, you're waiting in line, but anyway. It's 1 p.m. We're there. The nurse asks us to join her, and then I actually at one, if I'm not mistaken, at 1:39 she was actually born. So it was only 39 minutes, and then
Wow.
our daughter was there. But that half an hour it was like pretty hectic with doctors and nurses rushing in, rushing out. I was making images myself, so I was photographing.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, but so it was like a big rush, and then she's there, and then she gets weighed and measured, and all the other little, I don't know, things they have to check, and then normally I think in a natural birth as well, the baby does like kind of a skinning, like skin to skin
Oh
with
yeah.
the mother,
Mm.
but in this case, it was surgery, so they had to close the wound. So the father has to do it,
All right.
and yeah, that was it's like a big rush, and then the nurse takes me to a different room, and you have to sit there, and she hands you your daughter, and she's under cover, and then the nurse leaves, and then all of a sudden you come out of the whole rush, and then you're sitting alone in a room with a new life under the cover, and like
Oh,
yeah, and then you're sitting there for 20 minutes, and it was like it was that feeling, it was, first of all, the strangest thing, because as a father, you don't have like, it's the first tactile contact you have with your new baby. Like, if you're a mother and you're carrying a child, I think you have more connection during the whole 9 months. But as a father, you just, it's the first connection, and everything turns quiet, and you're sitting there, and it's like, it was, I cannot explain it differently than it was just magic. And then you start talking to her, and how you will take care of her, and what you wish for her, or whatever. And then all she wants to do is like get to your nipples and drink. But no, it's not that nipple, that person. But anyway, to make a small confession, it's something that, at the time I kind of was convinced. It was maybe a small belief that human nature and like human character is like, it had bad intentions. If you look around you in the world, if you look to the news, 90% of the news is about violence and anger and people suffering caused by, I don't know, other people wanting power or misusing power. So I kind of had like, human race is bad. You have a bad character. But then if your baby is lying there, and you see like, it's just, you feel that it's just new life is just so pure, and that it can't be, it can't have bad character. Yeah. And it was very, very intense. But it also realized, it made me also realize the importance of nurture via nature discussion. And even now our daughter is like, she's growing up, and she's 2.5 years old, and it astonishes me a little bit how you can influence a human, the development of a human being, by just little things, how you say little things. Like, I don't know, if she's now 2.5, so you have to say no a lot, because she's trying to find her limits and boundaries and stuff. But instead of saying, if you count the amount of times you say no to a child on a day, it's a lot, and it
a
also
fair few.
a few times. But if you think about the word no and how you prohibit that little baby or kid like doing her thing or experiencing of developing a character, you can say it differently. Instead of saying no, you can just don't use the word no, and just try to explain why and how.
Right.
I think that it changes. It has an effect on how your character and how a human develops to.
Yeah, sure. Oh man, well that's beautiful though, and that would be a lovely time to live over again. That 20 minutes of the
Those
whole
20
birth
minutes,
is beautiful.
it's like complete silence, complete like closed off of the world, and just you. Yeah, it was a magical feeling. Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool. That's cool. Actually leads me on to a good question as well. How do you find the balance of being a dad now and being a wedding photographer and kind of general work-life balance?
Yeah. We started off in a rocky path in the beginning, because our daughter was born like mid-July. So if you're talking about the height of the wedding season, it could be around that period. So it was badly timed. But so it was a rough couple of first months. But I learned from that, and 2018 was still a bit rocky. But I turned around my schedule in 2019, and I kind of did an 80-20 analysis. What's it called? Pareto analysis. And I kind of lined up all the like 80% of the type of jobs or assignments that bring me actually 80% of my income. and I kind of ditched all the little assignments that didn't really, had a high return on investment of my time.
Right.
And that cleared, because I used to take on not everything, but like 95% of the jobs, inquiries I just did because I wanted to shoot and I wanted to help people out, and it earned money, so why won't you do it?
Mm.
But now I realize that's not really the right way to approach filling up your schedule. And I kind of limited my, all the kind of things all the services I do to wedding photography. I limited to around 15 to 20 weddings a year.
Right.
Then I fill up my schedule with corporate jobs, like commercial photography that I can do during the weekdays, so it won't eat up more of my quality time with my family in the weekend.
Perfect.
The last bit I fill up with giving workshops and mentoring sessions, because that's something that I like to do as well. And it's and that's kind of the way I try to balance the volume of work I do in a year, and it frees up time to pick up my daughter at 5 p.m. at daycare. She's going to school next week, so
Oh, wow.
school ends at 3:45 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. So let's see how it works. But no, and then at 5 p.m. I it's just full focus on the family until around 8:30, and either I do some sports then, or I spend some quality time with my girlfriend, or I work if I really have something a deadline to catch. I can still do some work, but I make sure that the family time between those periods is like it's a holy it's a holy thing. So I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah, and
that's
that kind of balanced the whole my work-life balance. It kind of balanced everything out. Yeah.
That sounds good. Sounds like you've got it sorted. And I know, so I know you're happy for me to talk about this. So I'm not just dropping it on you mid-interview. But in your own words, you said you went through a harsh depression in the period from mid-18 to mid-19. But
Yeah.
mid-19 was a turning point, and you've grown so much from it. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I can. No, it was indeed. No, it was a difficult time, and I'm actually happy to talk about it. Just because it's I feel it's still such a taboo. I think if you're physically hurt, or you're sick, or you're in a hospital, and people are concerned, and they're like, okay, how are you? You know, how are you being treated? What's your treatment? Will you pull through, whatever? But if they know you're mentally like suffering or sick or whatever, people look at it more differently, and they're like, oh, is it contagious? Can we still be friends? And like, people immediately see you as I think as a weak person,
Right.
and while it's such a common thing, I read an article, I think last week, that for example, in Belgium, 1 out of 3 persons will experience like mental problems throughout his life at a
Right.
certain
Wow.
it's 1 out of 3.
Wow.
So and one out of, to be more specific, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7 will actually go through a depression. So
Right.
it's more common than you might think, but
Mm,
people are still somewhat like hesitant to be open about it, and that's why I kind of wanted to talk about it as well.
sure.
Because there's a difference in perception. People see you as maybe a successful photographer, in general, like if you see people winning awards, having a decent amount of work, I don't know, asked to talk on conferences, you can be seen as a successful photographer. And also for example, in my personal life, I have a good bunch of friends, you're doing a job which is kind of your passion. So people think, oh, you're so lucky. But like, if I can talk, in my case, when I looked at the mirror, I just saw someone who was just not good enough. I had low self-esteem, low self-value. So I think there's a big difference in perception. Sometimes how your reality is and how people perceive you. And for example, to emphasize or like give an example about that contradiction or that contrast is like in the March 2019, I was asked to talk on Worklife in Spain, and it's a very nice conference, and it's one of the biggest audiences I was, I stood in front. It was like 500 people.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was quite an adrenaline rush. But I was standing there talking in front of 500 people, and while like actually I just wanted to crawl into bed and hide under a cover. And
oh man,
it was I pulled through. I just put on my happy face and went on with the show. But it was I think one of the most difficult things I had to do until now.
right. Wow. Yeah.
Big moment. And then it's such a big contrast of people like thinking you're there, you're on a stage, blah blah blah, but in the end you just want to be alone in bed and just sleep.
Oh yeah.
It was very difficult. And one of the biggest things of ending up in that moment, like depression kind of phase, it was like I said, low self-value, but just being too hard on myself, trying to over analyzing everything. I used to be an engineer, so I analyze everything, but over analyzing everything, trying to be perfect to everyone, like as a photographer, as a boyfriend, as a father, as a friend. And I think that was a big reason. And I also believe our society nowadays doesn't help us in coping with all those little in those relations, because there's like I think we live in a high pressure society. There's a constant flow of information. Everybody wants to come across as a perfect human being in our social media. So I think that's a very heavy burden for some people, and not everyone. There are people out there who can cope with it and can put it in kind of in perspective. But I couldn't. I was one of those people that couldn't, and that led up to to going through a difficult time. But yeah, in the end, I crawled out of it. I don't want to go in too much detail on how I came out of it, because I'm actually I'm in the middle of trying to write a talk about it, because I think it could be very useful to a lot of people.
Oh, cool. Yeah, definitely.
I don't want to, give away the narrative too much.
Yeah, of course, that's fine.
But yeah, it's I came out of it, and in the end, nothing, the world outside of me didn't really change. Before that period, blue was blue, green was green, Trump was president, and afterwards Trump was unfortunately still president. So it's nothing really changed, but my perception of life, really, really changed a lot. And in that aspect, I think it's interesting. What I found interesting is how there's difference between knowing and realizing something.
Okay.
I don't know if it makes sense, but for example, it's not because people say that you're a good person. If you feel bad and have low self-esteem or low self-value, it's not because people say you're a good person, you're a good photographer. It's not that you see it this way as well, but it's only by going through a process of like knowing something, internalizing it, and then making it your own eventually, and live by it, that your whole perception can change. And for example, it's not because you know that junk food is bad that you're going to live by not eating junk food anymore. It's
Yeah.
difference. And I think that's a very vital difference in the process of going changing your perception. And once you're mentally better, the next step is just like doing the physical work. And I think for me an important moment was around mid September 2019, actually a couple of months back. I was 34 at the time. Now I'm 35, way more mature and stuff. But at 34, I woke up and it was a stressful couple of weeks. I was doing a lot of work, and I woke up and I was so tired, and I was 34, but I felt like I was 65. I was physically, I was like, oh no, I shouldn't feel this way, I should feel fit, and I'm not. So I knew I had to change, but it's always difficult, there's a big threshold you have to cross, to change something like that. But then in October, I think, like, it's been 3-4 years that in October I'm doing sober in October. I just stopped drinking alcohol for 1 month.
Okay.
I did that as well, and it was kind of it was like this year, like this time, it was like a big change for me. And like after 2 weeks, I was feeling much fitter and like sharper, like mentally sharper. And it's not. I just want to make clear, I didn't have an alcohol problem. It's like it can seem that I was an alcoholic, but I wasn't. I was just like being a moderate drinker. Like, I don't know. I actually didn't drink at home. Some people drink a glass of wine at dinner, but I didn't. I was just, when I drink alcohol, it was always when I was at a social event or outside. So out of the 7 days in a week, I think I didn't drink for 3 or 4 days. So it's not that I really had a problem, but still the moments that I drank alcohol, those some, that, I don't know, 10 consumptions maybe in a week, or maybe 7, 6, whatever. It had a big impact. And I once read like a book, Power of Habit, and it's a book, about habits and how to break them. And I read that you have certain habits in your life that are keystone habits. If you break those habits and try to change them, they have a big impact, like an avalanche of impact on the rest of your life. And for me, quitting alcohol was that kind of keystone habit. I had more energy. It's because I had more energy. I went out and structured my exercising more regularly. So went out boxing, swimming more often. And then by doing that, I started looking differently at my diet. Like, what do I eat during a day? Um, and it just was an avalanche of different things I changed. And like a couple of months later, right now I lost around, I think, 7, 8 kilos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and not by living on a strict diet or whatever. I just still, I still drink alcohol. I still eat junk food.
McDonald's, including McDonald's?
No, I wasn't. Sorry, I was. No. Like, I wasn't really a fan of McDonald's ever.
Oh, man.
No, I'm sorry, but I still eat Belgian fries.
Oh, yeah, Belgian fries. Okay.
Belgian fries. I just want to, underline that again. It's Belgian fries, not French fries. No, but it's not I'm not living very strict. I think in the month of January, I think I drank 1/2 of a glass of wine. So I still do it. But actually, I think the biggest change I've made, that it's not just like a habit or like something in my routine. I don't drink alcohol because everybody else is doing it, or you just feel like it's social pressure. But if I drink a glass of alcohol, or if I eat, I don't know, fries or popcorn when I go to the cinemas, it's a conscious decision. And I think that was a big change in how know I live now. If I just don't do anything anymore just out of a habit, but
Right.
it's always a conscious decision. So that's also, I think, my new mantra. I don't know, motto in life is like being actively conscious and consciously active. Like I actively will think about the decisions I take, and I'm also like very aware of being active in life, like trying to do different projects, but also trying actively, like literally exercise more. And I think
That's
yeah,
cool. That's a great way to be now. I think that's a great mantra, man.
yeah, I think yeah, it helps me a lot. I've written it on a little post-it, and I put it under my computer screen just to remind myself of
That's
it,
cool.
like day in, day out. Yeah, so yeah,
Cool.
it's been an interesting, and I think for like one last thing, like one last bit in this whole thing is like the biggest difference also, me being before mid 2018 and after mid 2019, I'm still a perfectionist, and I still try to excel.
Mm.
um, but when before that time, I try to excel and trying in order to like differentiate me from the rest of the pack, try to be
Mm.
someone, try to be someone among everyone else, and
Yeah.
stand out. But I was focused on everyone else. I was just doing it with keeping one eye on like what is everybody else doing, and I want to be different. I want to
Mm.
be different than them. And now I still try to excel and still try to you know um, create high value, but it's not anymore because having a focus on everybody else, but just having a focus on myself, and just being powered by the joy of the work I do, like enjoying the process, and not like having the goal in mind, but having the process in mind, enjoying it, and out of a certain passion. And I think that's a much healthier approach. um
Mm.
yeah.
Totally, man. I think that's a great way of looking at it now. I think that's really positive. And yeah, cool. Oh, thank you so much for talking about that. I think that's really interesting, and people will find that really useful to listen to. Thank you.
Hmm.
Do you think
Yeah.
this mindset, and do you think has it helped you in kind of entering awards? You've won so many awards from so many different associations.
Mhm.
What for you is a driving factor that keeps you entering them?
Mhm.
And does that disconnect help now? You can
Yeah.
feel less personally attached to images and things.
Yeah, I've always been like I've been just in my life, I've always loved competition. um I love to compete, like playing board games or soccer games or whatever. It's like I told you earlier, it kind of pushes me on an edge, and it pressures me. And if the pressure is there, I'm able to excel. If the
Mm.
pressure is not there, I'm not able to excel in some way. Like when I was studying, my engineering studies, I was postponing all of my work until the last day, and then
Yeah, right.
and I had great results, but I need that pressure to perform. And I think competition for me is something that I therefore also like to do. Um, and it also enabled me, because everyone, when you start out, you want to differentiate, distinguish yourself from your peers, because
Mm.
you need business, and
Yeah.
you need to you need to shout like, here I am. And for me, like those awards were like a good a good means to do this. And so I started out. I think 2014 was my first full year as a wedding photographer, and I think in 2015 I think I was on the 11th spot of I think fearless photographers.
Wow.
So it was already, it was quite a good result.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And yeah, it like accumulated in 2017. I think I was photographer of the year at the Master of Wedding Photography, and I was in top 10 of Fearless.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, now I made it. Now I'm happy, and I think it was Sitlali, who you also I think interviewed.
Yeah.
She she's a friend as well, and she told me, like, you have to watch out, because that you don't get caught up in those awards, and because she also had a similar situation. And I was like, no, I can put myself above all of that. It won't, it won't fiddle with my mind, and I will be able to cope with, the expectations and pressure. But actually I didn't.
All right.
It's like what is success? How would you describe success? Is it being able to book a wedding, or two weddings, or three weddings? Is it to win an award? And if you win an award, maybe you want to win two awards, and maybe you want to get in the top 10, then maybe you want to get in the top 3, maybe you want to be photographer of the year. You always push your new level, or how you perceive success, forward and forward and forward, until it's at that level that you just crash under the pressure that you put yourself under. That's also one of the reasons, one of the many reasons, that I kind of fall into that depression, just
Right. Okay.
because of the pressure you put on yourself, like to always trying to be perfect in every way, on every level. And that's, I think, is the other side of the medal of all those awards. So it's, I think, the like disconnecting the ego from your photography also puts all those awards into perspective, on one hand, and on the other hand, it's it also enables me to see awards also as a mean to get to a certain goal in my business. For example, I think that's also one of the things, I didn't join This Is Reportage in the beginning, because I didn't know if it was a high quality association. They awards and conferences, they pop up like mushrooms.
Yeah.
They're everywhere, and everybody, it's everybody, the ones that organize it wants to obviously run a business, because that's one of the reasons you do it. But before I want to join a competition and an association, I first want to see, like, what's the quality of the people that join it, what's the quality of that association. Also, what's the mission? Does it have a certain identity, and do I want to identify with that as well? And then the most important thing for me is to see, does that association or that competition or whatever, does it give something back to the community?
Right.
We pay to enter awards and for our membership, but something has to come back to that community to grow it, to be kind of a learning platform. That's why I just chose to stop entering in some competitions, because it's just a one-way discussion, and and how I feel it should work. And that's why I also, like, with this is Reportage now. This round is the first round I compete in. Just because I see what you're doing with the podcasts, with the community, the Facebook group. Also, the aspect of the stories. It's something else, and it really, now I noticed and experienced while I was choosing my the stuff I wanted to enter, that it makes you think differently of your own work, and like it adds something to the wedding photography community. And I think that's an important thing that wedding competitions can give to members and photographers. Yeah, I don't know if that kind of answered your question.
No, it does, definitely. It does, man.
I just like, then I start talking. That happens a lot to me. I start talking and I don't know where I'm going to end up.
No, that's great. Really good. And it's great having you part of TIR now. And it's really interesting to hear your thoughts and all that kind of thing as well. Yeah, it's awesome. Dude, we've just got time, I think, just for one more question. So what in your opinion makes a good wedding photographer?
It's, I think, empathy. I think that's the first word that comes to mind. It's something that I kind of missed, I think, in the past as well. It's something that I've also learned from my from my dark period that's behind me now. It's something that I learned to have as well. But it's also, I think, empathy and being fully client focused, and that links to what I told you earlier about disconnecting the ego from your photographer. Like, in the end of the day, you can be as creative as you want to be and win as many awards as you want to, that you can win, and speak at conferences and travel around the whole world to shoot weddings. In the end of the day, you have a client that pays you for a service, and you're there to shoot their wedding, and they choose you for a reason, and you can have a great connection, and that's all good. But in the end of the day, you're there to shoot their story and not to fulfill your dreams and your aspirations and your just to check your boxes. You have to check theirs as well, and it has to be a mix of both, obviously. But I think that's a very important thing, to be able to set your ego aside and just work for your client, even if you're tired, even if you're hungry maybe. I don't know. Just keep your client in mind and work. I think that's
awesome. Yeah, I think that's great, man. Really great advice. Awesome. Oh, man, honestly, Yves, thank you so much. That was brilliant.
I don't know if it was brilliant, because maybe I've said, like, it's a one-to-one discussion now, and I kind of realized, like, maybe 20, 30, 40 other photographers will be listening, maybe hundreds.
A lot more. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot more. So maybe it's a bit, maybe I talked about things I shouldn't have talked about. But
no, I think that everyone will really appreciate you talking how you spoke there and your openness. And honestly, I think, thank you so much for that. I think it was brilliant.
Okay, you're welcome.
It really was, man, and I really love talking to you. And people, if people are listening to this while they're running or editing or in the car, head to the site and you'll be able to see lots of examples of Yves' work. There'll be a full transcript there as well. I'll link to your website as well, of course. And oh man, honestly, thank you so much for that. Honestly, I loved it.
You're welcome, Alan. It was my pleasure.
And I'll see you soon. Will I see you are you coming to Dublin to Doc Day?
Yeah, I will be there.
I'll see you
there. To cheer Sanne in her first ever
talk. Yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing her talk.
So we're going on a road trip with a bunch of other photographers. So it's going to be fun.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to see you there again. And are you coming to 9 Dots again this year?
Yeah, I think I already booked my ticket. So like I said, prepare.
Oh man, awesome. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to the 17th episode of the This Is Reportage podcast. Yves was a total pleasure to talk to. So interesting. Hope you enjoyed listening too. Head to thisisreportage.com to see more of Yves' work, including the 7 Reportage Awards that he won in a single round. If you enjoyed the podcast today, you can subscribe to our show on iTunes to be notified when each new weekly episode is ready, bringing you advice, tips and backstories from some of the world's best photographers each week. And if you have a few minutes to give us a review, that would be so massively appreciated. Each review increases the chance of these fab people getting heard by more and more listeners. And if you're not yet a member of TIR, check out all the benefits of joining us, including an unlimited number of images on your profile, 60 Reportage Award and 18 Story Award entries per year, invites to our physical meetups and parties, exclusive discounts and more. And lastly, if you're heading to Doc Day in Dublin on Tuesday, 18th of Feb 2020, I'll see you there. Doc Day is the unique documentary-focused conference that's held in association with This Is Reportage, and it sold out months and months ago. So excited for it and to see photographers from all over the world there. No poses, nothing staged, this is Reportage. And this is bye for now.